Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to be here. Happy to share our case study on utilizing AI to make the perfect Cheetos snack. Did anyone have any Cheetos today during lunch or snack time? Oh, so maybe next time, but at least you'll know more about it now, and we'll promise that by the end here. So I'm Petrie, and this is Anant Mishra. And again, we're going to tell you a little bit about the need for leading up to the potential autonomous operation within Cheetos, and we'll give you a little bit of details on how we're approaching it around the program. So a little bit more about us. So again, Petrie, Director of Applied AI, been with PepsiCo for 15 years in our global R&D foods team. At PepsiCo, R&D is accountable for product, process, equipment, and control specs of our supply chain facilities. So supply chain is more focused on execution once that stuff is there. We're accountable for developing technology, implementing it, commissioning it, et cetera. So within our Applied AI group, we've got two main charters. One is around the utilization of information for innovation purposes. So how do we get advantage innovation? How do we go faster, cheaper, et cetera? The other piece is around smart manufacturing and automation. How do we get better in our plants? And that part of our team is led by Anant. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
So I believe that the future is digitizing automation. Like exactly what he says, focus on automating automation. My responsibility in Pepsi is what is our vision for end-to-end automation? How are we going to deliver value? That's where I am focusing. Max is my boss. So I believe that that's the future of automation is going to be driven by shop floor, where IT/OT separation does not exist. That's the future of shop floor where we are driving, and that's the area where I'm focusing. Last 15 years, I have been in the space of automation engineering, and I joined Pepsi last May. But yes, I have been in the business of automation for a while to say that autonomy is the future for the future of manufacturing.
All right, and then we're also joined today by Dr. Jorge Morales, sitting in the second row. He is our foremost leading expert on food extrusion and our Cheetos processing across all of PepsiCo. So more as an end user, someone who's helping us build information into these tools as we're building them from the ground up. So really excited to have him here as well. He won't be on the panel, but we are around. We'll be at SeaWorld tonight, so happy to kick in some chat there as well. So first of all, a little bit leading up to the Project Excel. Cheetos, part of PepsiCo, obviously a huge global company. We're in more than 200 countries with over 300,000 employees across all these different regions. We're split into two separate groups. So we're in global beverages as well as global convenient foods. Obviously, Cheetos is a billion-dollar brand sitting in the global convenient food section. We are focused specifically on foods for Anant, and Jorge. At PepsiCo, these actually are a little bit siloed. So to be honest, if you have any questions in the Q&A about what our beverage business is doing, we probably won't know the answer. So that's a place where they're kind of focusing on their own thing. They've got their own situation for how they bottle, et cetera. And then on the food side, we have a slightly different case. So for food specifically across North America, again, we have facilities all over the world, but North America, we've got about 30 facilities that we internally operate, and plus a few more co-manufacturers as well. And the challenge for us is across all these different locations in the United States, there's going to be varying water quality, varying ingredient quality, different vendors sourced from different areas. Over time, as we install new lines, the technology might be a little different, the setups are a little bit different. How do we continue to deliver high quality, consistent product between all these different locations? So that way, when you buy a Cheetos Puff in Seattle versus buying one here in Florida, that it's exactly what you expect it to be. It's the experience that you want as the consumer. So for Cheetos specifically, we have over 10 facilities in the US. So this certainly comes into play for us as we start to think about automation. So in my opinion, the opportunity for digital disruption is already here. So a lot of these challenges that we're going to talk about, I'm sure a lot of you are facing as well. So we're already facing things within the supply chain side of raw material disruptions. Things aren't delivering on time. We're not getting exactly the quality we're hoping for. We still got to go out and make the Cheetos that our consumers are expecting. Additionally, we're always getting challenged to be thinking about how can we increase capability to be able to deliver the same products with maybe slightly different raw materials. So wider spec range, just things that are a little bit different about them. Our processes are designed to do it a certain way, but now we're going to be asked to say, can you produce the same thing with something that's maybe a little cheaper, a little bit more variable? And then the last two more related to the supply chain facilities, Mark hit on this earlier. We're seeing high labor turnover in our operators and our frontline staff, just like a lot of you are in operations facilities. And we do have a lot of experts that are now retiring after 20, 30 years running some of these lines. So the average tenure of the people who are operating our core lines, especially in the Cheetos departments, is getting much lower. So the opportunity for technology to come in and help us consider how we're dealing with these challenges is right now. So how do we bring technology in, especially maybe in this autonomous space where we're increasing the equipment and the human capability to go operate these things in the field, knowing we're not going to have that tenure and expertise here in the near future. We still have to deliver high quality, consistent products as we've been talking about and while doing this. And especially as we're experiencing these disruptions, we still need to continue, when we're running, when we're up, we have to be producing at the highest rate and we have to be producing with the utmost efficiency. And that's also a play where we're looking to deploy these tools. So autonomous operations is something that's new for us in our manufacturing facilities that we're just now starting to get into. Advanced control is something that is not new. We've been doing like APC, et cetera, for a couple of decades now. We've also been looking at machine vision solutions since the early 2000s. These technologies are definitely getting more mature, which is making a lot more appetite across our organization to find other use cases for these types of things, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But especially from a digital transformation standpoint, we've, at PepsiCo, have put a lot more emphasis into it over the past couple of years. That's part of the reason our team was formed, to go focus in these areas. And more recently, we've even formed a partnership with Microsoft as we look to deploy tools like Bonsai and AI machine learning to see how we can start to get the benefits for these things. So that's it leading up to it. Now let's do the fun part. Let's talk about Cheetos. How many of you feel like you've ever had a perfect Cheetos puff? Perfect. Okay, a couple. I mean, out of all the bags you've had, there had to be at least one, right? Had to be at least one. Okay. Okay. Ideally, you open the bag and they're all perfect, right? Doesn't matter where you are, anywhere across the country, across the world. But there you go. So the three categories when we talk to consumers about what makes up the perfect Cheeto tend to fall into these areas. One, it's the right shape. It's got the right length. It's got the right thickness, the right curl. It's a perfect 2, 3, or maybe even one bite, depending on how you go about eating Cheetos Puffs. It's got the experience you're looking for there from the shape and the feel. It's also the consumer preferred texture of what that is. So the bite, the crispness when you bite into it, the air structure, what we call the density, and how it feels in your hand and when you're chewing on it. And then lastly, it's got the right amount of seasoning slurry, as well as distributed evenly across the whole Cheeto. So it's not like one bite has none and one bite has all. It's like a big hit of salt and cheese. It's evenly distributed every time. So for us, this is the goal. Again, we want everyone to be like this, and this is going to be the perfect experience every time you pull out a Cheeto and open the bag. So before I turn over to Anant, I just want to share a little bit about the extrusion process for those of you who are not familiar. So Cheetos is made using food extrusion. We take dry ingredients like cornmeal and water and put them into an extruder with rotating screws, high mechanical energy, high mechanical force, shearing those ingredients to the point at high temperature and pressure where it essentially turns into a liquid inside the extruder. It's then pressed through an opening or an orifice where it comes out of the extruder into atmospheric pressure and whatever the temperature is in the room. That rapid pressure change causes evaporation of the water in this process and is causing it to rapidly expand into these shapes, in this case of unseasoned Cheetos, which we call colettes. So our program today at this point is focused more on this front end around the extruder, but from there, then generally it would get dried, it would get seasoned, and then put into the package. In the long-term scenario, all these things are included as part of the future scope of bringing autonomous AI. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Anant to tell you a little bit more about the program.
So I will walk you through a couple of challenges which we have, I will say, learned or at least managed to mitigate to a certain extent. We all know things which cannot be measured cannot be controlled, right? So we need to measure. And what are we trying to measure? We are trying to measure a very high volume throughput product. We are talking about thousands of pounds per hour moving in a conveyor system. It's a mobile system. We are not talking about measuring in a stationary system. And we need to measure things which are supposed to be very accurate, right? Otherwise, there is no control. And if there is no control, no one is happy. So things which we wanted to focus was in a process, what really matters, what matters for operations, what matters for food scientists, and what matters for our consumer. All these three things has to be pinned down with process parameters which we feel needs to be digitized, because there are many data which we track, but most of the data are captured through operators, through process engineers who are on the shop floor. We can't control with very low fidelity of data sets. We wanted high throughput data. We ended up fixing the problem of what really matters in our process, how do we capture that, and how do we digitize it? Because if we digitize it, then only we can build custom applications on top of it. So the very first challenge which we wanted to tackle, are we able to capture the right process data? Do we believe it? And do we trust it? How do we ensure that we are tracking the parameters which we want and we are measuring in a way which quality guys agrees? So this is a topic which I can say that we have got a good hand on it. The point which I want to summarize, or at least the point which I feel the autonomous systems are built, or at least the requirement which it was, there is a subtle difference between automatic system and autonomous system, right? Autonomous system thrives on, I know a bit controversial, but real time or near real time, or at least real time to an extent where operator can take advantage of that data. That is something which we focused on, that we generate data which is consistent, which is accurate, which is accepted without challenge, but it should be near real time. It should be something where the degree of fidelity of acquisition should be higher than the fidelity of control which our users want. Just to keep it simple, I think we digitized it well enough. Once we tackle the problem, then we realize, okay, how do we control this, what we are measuring, right? We need to build a controller which is not existing in the world. It cannot be purchased off the shelf. It has to be built by process engineers, because we are trying to control a process, not a machine. And there is a subtle difference. We make an assumption that machines and process go hand in hand, but when it comes to food science, machine and process means very different things. So when we talk about process control and designing a process control, we had an approach of bringing multi-stakeholder tech audience to design the controller which they agree and they believe. Microsoft was one of our crucial partners, and it's not an easy journey. It's not a journey which took us months. It took us, I can say, a good amount of months. So, and this is the a workflow which I think Microsoft can explain it exceedingly well. But the underlying technology of autonomy is coming from deep reinforcement learning. I know it's a mouthful of word, but deep reinforcement learning is being already used in gas turbine, a very high frequency operation. We also know, if you are following this, in Europe, nuclear fission reactors have already been controlled by deep reinforcement learning. Coal power plants are being controlled by deep reinforcement learning. Deep reinforcement learning has graduated from a kid to an adult. It has acquired its space in controls community. If you visit any of the robotics forum, you will see all the robot guys will be using one or the other way of AI-driven control, data-driven control. Deep reinforcement learning-driven control is one subset of data-driven control. We are taking advantage of what Bonsai as a low-code platform has offered and willing to help us and guide us to take advantage of the data which we are generating. The thing which we remain focused is where Mark started the story with trust. He started the story with that let's not add additional risk by bringing more automation. We speak in the language of tech plus business together. Robustness is for tech audience. Trustworthiness is for the people who trust the tech audience. We are taking very conscious steps that when we say the controller is ready, we have a very clear metric to demonstrate and calculate robustness. And we need to also bring right stakeholders in the room to really bring a good ecosystem of trustworthiness. This is not one after other. They both are working in tandem, at least in the project, the way we are driving it. Without this, I believe that we will always be a cool POC, but it is not something which will tackle the challenge number 3. We are interested in Pepsi to execute at scale. We are not executing this controller in a lab environment. We are executing in a classic brownfield setup. And this is a different level of game altogether. We all know production world is messy, but very optimistic. I believe that the production guys are the most optimistic guys in manufacturing business. We are tackling that problem of how do we execute head on. And before this is a kind of a conceptual logical architecture I want to bring, but let's focus on the top 3 pillars where we are focusing. We believe that when we are talking about a scale, it is built on the foundation of connectivity and conversion. Without showing the real value of connection, or at least the maturity of connection, no one is going to believe the story of a scale. No plant maintenance people is going to believe that this solution or this POC is going to scale unless we talk about the elements which we have written in the connection pieces. It's not an easy journey. We all know a lot of words around like hard to Profibus to Modbus. Now we are hearing OPC UA. You might be also hearing next year with RabbitMQ when we talk about high frequency data set. Communication protocol is changing. And we know that it is not going to be stationary for next couple of years as well. We are keeping in mind that we are going to tackle this with sense of humility, that yes, it needs to be plug and play, but it will be under some constrained environment, plug and play model. We are always making sure that we take a step back and ask ourselves honestly, is it a future-proof solution? Or at least, are we closer to future-proofing it? Connectivity is a topic which tend to get into complex discussions, but we are making sure that when we are talking about future-proofing, we are bringing our security guys, we are bringing our IT guys on same level before we even go ahead and start investing more time and more resources in it. Connection is a theme where we are learning, I can say, and also discovering what is the right way to do connection for a typical brownfield setup. If you guys have any suggestion, please feel to enlighten us and educate us. We believe that we know how to connect, but we also know that there is no right way for brownfield. So every suggestion is welcome here. On the conversion, we are making sure that we don't lose our focus by focusing on the big story of autonomous operations, but keep focus on incremental value drivers, what we can offer to our plants today so that they are cheerleaders of our journey rather than kind of, okay, I don't care, but show me only if you are ready. So we are making sure that at every stage of project deliveries, and that's where you saw that we tackled our projects in different challenges. At each challenge, we are focusing what we can offer to our consumer. And the consumer, again, bringing it back, is operator, food scientists, and maintenance engineers. We are considering the persona of each 3 classes of user, and there is a value for each of the users when we speak autonomous in the language of their pain. And we focus pain and value go hand in hand when we remove autonomous from the buzzword and bring it, okay, what are we fixing for the operator who has to measure data every shift? Is it something a quality guy agrees towards? Is it something a maintenance engineer believes that he or she can maintain it? Or it is easy to be retrofitted, whatever we are building. So that is something which we are learning as we are discovering, but our goals are cast in a stone. We are going to build solutions which are ready to scale. We are not a POC team here. One word, if I want you to take away with this, is seamless interaction. That's our litmus test. If any solution which we are interacting, if it is not interacting either horizontal or in the vertical data stream, that's the proof that it is not future proof. It's not something where we need to keep resources investment. And it is something which might be a quick fix, but it is not a strategic tool set for us. So seamless interaction is the word which I request you to carry. And if you have any thoughts, please willing to share with us. So coming back to little tech kind of audience who is there in the room, we believe in the future of cloud. We know that shop floor loves cloud if it demonstrates that it is safe and if it demonstrates the right information is available to the right user whenever they need. So this architecture, what you are saying, is driven from the 3 user personas which I mentioned. In our use cases, we have time series data, we have event-driven data, which you might guess coming from quality. We have both sets of data coming into our process. We have legacy HMIs, we have legacy PLCs. Even in PLC, we have different classes of PLCs. And bringing your attention towards the unit op, we are tackling autonomy through unit operation, one unit operation at a time. We know there are trade-offs by following this approach, but we are right now in the zone where we say, let's bring things where the highest value for a given unit operation. We are trying to take advantage of all the new data which we are generating in form of digitalization of the process, or when we create new data out of the process, which is in addition of what PLCs are already recording. We are pushing the limit of showing the value of autonomy by building new soft sensors. And we believe that the soft sensor is the place where business takes maximum advantage of all the works which we are doing. And that is something which can keep adding the value over a period of time. So that's an area which we are doing. On the top side of the cloud, we are taking care of all the stakeholders coming from the IT community and also from the leadership who are interested on how does this solution helps us make ROI in a certain given time period. So the left side of the things are mostly related with people who are responsible for governance, people who are responsible for rolling out, and also the people who are going to be the owner of these solutions in the future. The right side of the team is mostly trying to tackle the people who are interested to take this data and invent Cheetos of 2025, or bring the plants at a level of efficiency which will be a big game changer for future. So we are taking all of these tackling head on. Unless we tackle this architecture and we deploy it, scaling is not real for us. We are deploying this architecture, and that is our story of how are we going to scale it and how we will make autonomous operation a reality for food manufacturing. With that, I request Max.
So just to wrap it up, not hit on a lot of these things, but our 3 biggest things for you to take away. 1, don't overcomplicate it. Don't go for the full line all at once right off the bat. Again, focus on short-term wins. You can focus on individual unit operations to show that you can start to do some of this stuff in a plan, right? If you go for it all at once, it's going to take too long. You're going to lose your stakeholders. Focus on short-term wins. Number 2, continue to focus on the business. The technology is an enabler for the business, right? But without tying it back to ROI or something that your business stakeholders, the people who are funding and supporting you, can understand and measure, you may have some struggles. That's something that we've definitely learned along the way. And then lastly, consistent engagement with stakeholders, both governing your project, but also those end users. Our main goal is not to create something that's more complicated or too complex for our frontline operators to use or our lab technicians. They have to be able to integrate with it. It needs to make their lives easier. We need them as supporters. If it goes the other way, it might work for a little bit, but again, then you have a bunch of staff turnover, new people come in, you're toast. So staying close to your end users, absolutely critical. So with that, that's all we had. Again, hopefully next time you open a bag of Cheetos, you'll think about it a little bit differently. You might examine it a little bit. Your spouse or your friends might look at you a little weird, but we're used to that. So thank you for the time today.